Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. Jayati Jayati Namananda Rupam Murare Viramita Nirdhar Madhyana Pujari Atam Katamapi Sakridatam Muktinam Paramamritam Ekanam Jivanam Bhushanam Le. Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Uttapadakamalan Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagar Jatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parjana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanditanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Govigakanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpahatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are continuing reading from Sri Manah Siksha by Ramana Das Goswami. Instructions to the mind. So we discussed the first 4 verses to some extent. Today we're going to speak about the 5th one. And the first verse is most well known amongst all the verses, amongst the Vaishnavas, and it is an important verse. Guru Goste Gostalishu Sajan Pusurgan Samantra Sri Namni Navayuvadvande Sharane Sadadamba Hitva Kururatyam Atipur Atitaram Purvam Aye Brante Santa. Chaturbir Adiyache Dritapada. So instructing the mind to give up all pride and to develop faith and affection towards Sri Guru, Brajdham, the Brijavasis, and showing respect to all Vaishnavas, the Brahmanas, taking shelter of the divine couple, Sri Radha and Krishna, also by taking shelter first in the chanting the holy names, the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By chanting the holy names, then we can slowly but surely we can take shelter of the divine couple. The holy names, Radha Krishna, are manifested there. They are non-different. Krishna Nam are non-different. And the Gayatri mantras are there, also non-different from the personality. So then advising to take shelter of Rupa Goswami also, and the Sarupa Damodar. And in this way take shelter of Mahaprabhu also, and the divine couple. So text number 5. Asaj cheshta kasta pradavikata pachali bhiriha prakamam kamadi prakata patapati vyatikarai gale badva hanye ahamiti bakabit vatmapa gane kurutam putkaram avatisayathatvam mana itaha. So here in this verse, Raghunadas Goswami is addressing the mind. Basically addressing the conditioned soul, the sadhaka, the devotee is trying to advance in spiritual life, who have to deal with this mind. So translation, lust, anger and so on are a band of dacoits who sail one suddenly on the open road of material life. They have bound my neck essentially with the torturous, dreadful ropes of wicked deeds and are killing me. O mind, speaking in this way, you must grievously cry out to the powerful and merciful devotees who are the protectors of the path of devotion leading to Sri Krishna, the killer of Bakasura. Hearing your piteous cry, they will surely protect you from such a condition. So, of course, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he has given a translation of Manah Siksha and also tika or purport of these different verses, known as Bhajan Tarpan. Bhajan Tarpan. So, explaining how to do our bhajan. Darpan. So that means, as we know, Cheto Darpanam Ajanam. So the mirror is there. So when you have a mirror, you can, well, when you put tilak in the morning, you are using a mirror. You are using mirror? Mirror, putting tilak. Then you can see your face and you can put nicely. Of course, some devotees, they don't use the mirror. Like even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, they were just applying without the mirror. Sometimes also when you go to Jamuna and take bath and there's no mirror, then we apply without the mirror, the help. And but then sometimes it may not be perfectly all right. So therefore usually we use the mirror. The small mirror usually. The brahmacharis or sannyasis, if they use a small mirror. And grihastas also. Because some grihastas don't want to comb their hair also, then they have a little bigger mirror. And the ladies, they have a big mirror. And they have to have nice makeup, they have to see the whole body also, have nice sari and see that they're nicely decorated. Which is all right. So, so the mirror is helpful. How to see oneself, and so and the acharyas, so they have shown how to do bhajan. So in this way, helping us to see the path by which we can advance in spiritual life. So first here, kamadi prakata patapati vyatikara. So kama adi, kama means lust, adi. So that refers to, as explained in the scriptures, the mind. So it's the source of the seven, as mentioned here, dacoits, enemies actually of the jiva, of the conditioned soul. Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. These are the 6 enemies or dacoits as explained here. And first is lust, and then Krodh, so anger, or Lobh, greed. Mada means madness, Moha, illusion, and Matsarya, that means envy. So the conditioned soul is constantly actually disturbed by these, sometimes more, sometimes less. And so it is also explained that so even on the highway, so as here mentioned, on the road of material life, sometimes explained as the highway. So even on the highway, sometimes the robbers are there, and then one is disturbed. And practically speaking, we can see in this material world, well, especially also we have seen here, even in Braj. So not everyone who is in Braj is a devotee, but there are also persons there who are not so nice, although they may be. They're not really living in Braj, they are living on the surface of the holy place, on the covering of the holy place. And then they are engaging in illicit activities, and they are disturbing others also. Even here they are thieves. So, and also on the highway, even now, but now less. But previously, when I first came here 40 years ago, so it was always advised never to travel at night, going to Delhi or even going to Radhakund or Shamakund to Govardhan at night, because there was every chance that we would be attacked by dacoits, even on the highway, especially on the highway also. Because that time also they knew that people are coming from the west, from the airport, and then they want to go to the holy place, or even they want to go to Agra, see the Taj Mahal. And so then they were stopping them and robbing them of whatever they had. So even on the highway, or at that time especially on the highway, they were stopping. So on the path of the devotee, so the difficulties are there. And the greatest difficulty is coming from the mind. Of course, also the false ego is there. And because of the false ego then, because the bodily conception is there, not knowing one's real situation as the eternal servant of Krishna, then the false conception is there. I'm this or I'm that, I'm a man, I'm a woman, or even as a devotee I'm in this position, that position, and identifying with that, and not being humble. Pride is there. So then the difficulties are there, coming from one's own mind. So these are the difficulties, and they're known as dacoits. So even so it is mentioned here, Vyatikara. They have assembled together. So the six enemies. Just like usually the dacoits also, usually there are more than one. And the robbers, usually 2 or 3, sometimes more. And then it is more difficult to become free from them. If they attack, if many people attack, if it is only one person, maybe one can push that person away. So similarly, if there's only one of these lust, anger, greed, delusion, then one is not so much in trouble. But when all of them are attacking, and so that is the meaning here, Vyatikara, so they're meeting together. Lust, anger, greed, illusion. So when they meet together, then that is the chance for the jiva, for the embodied jiva to go ahead nicely. Difficult situation. And in this way, so the jiva is almost being killed by that very difficult situation. Hanye, they are killing, aham, they are killing me. Lust, anger, greed, madness. So what to do? Then put karan, one should call out. One should call out to the Vaishnavas who are protecting us, just like if there's a difficulty. So, well, the police is supposed to help, so if the police is around, then we cry out to the police. But if there's no police, then we cry out to Krishna. But anyhow, we should always cry out to Krishna. If the police is there to help, fine. And if police is not there, then, but still Krishna is always there also to help. And so the Vaishnavas also, they're there, the gentlemen are there to help. And but for the jiva here in this particular situation, so one has to take the help of the Vaishnavas. One is attacked by these enemies. Lust, anger, greed, delusion, pride, and envy. Then one has to take shelter of the devotees, of the spiritual master. And so then they can help us. Of course, if one is sitting at home, then one has to try to see that they are also with us in the heart. Or we have the picture of the spiritual master, of the acharyas, then we can cry out to them for their help. But usually we need a person who is physically present, and then we can express our difficulties, and then the merciful devotees, and they can help one to overcome these obstacles. And then when we call out to the Vaishnavas, so that means also Krishna will hear. And of course the devotees, they will also ultimately pray to the Supreme Lord, to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to Krishna himself. But one has to, as mentioned here, one has to cry out from the core of one's heart. And Kuru, so even it is mentioned, one should call out loudly, because the mind is very strong and so many times overtaking the jiva, and then just And then the only way then to become free, one has to then cry out loudly, Krishna, Krishna, Gauranga, Gauranga. Or chant loudly the holy names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So basically, we take shelter of Hari Guru Vaishnav, and then we can overcome the situation. Then also it is mentioned, Asat Cheshta Kashta Pradavikata Pasha. Again here the Pasha, the ropes. Vikata dreadful ropes of Asat Cheshta. Kashta Prada. So Asat Cheshta, Cheshta means the endeavor. Asat. So that means that which is detrimental. Sat means, of course, Sat can mean the absolute truth. And as we know, as is mentioned, Asatma, Sadgamayaha, we should go to the eternal life and give up the impermanent life. Mritama Amritagamayaha, give up this cycle of birth and death and go to the real life, to the nectarian life of devotional service. Tamasima Jyotirgamayaha, give up ignorance, darkness, and go to the light. So inauspicious activities, wicked deeds, they should be given up. Asat Cheshta. But sometimes the devotee is not able also to do that. And is engaging, and it seems to be as even Krishna is Arjuna is telling to Krishna that sometimes it seems to be that one is actually being dragged from the right path by force. But then Krishna is saying actually it is only due to lust that the jiva is taking the wrong path. So, but then we have to call out, and then we may be protected from doing activities which are detrimental, which are inauspicious, which are sinful. Asat Cheshta. Baka Bid Vatmapaganaha. Someone has to take shelter of the protectors. Vatmapa. Vatma means actually the road. The protectors of the road, the path. Ragvatma Chandrika. There's explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that which is showing the path of spontaneous love, of transcendental affection. So Vatmapa is one who is protecting the path. So that Gan means the persons, that means the devotees. So the path leading to Bakabit is one who killed the demon Bakasura, that is Krishna. So our path is to go to Golok Vrindavan. So the Vaishnavas are there to help us. so the spiritual master is there, and then the previous acharyas are there to help us. The Mahajans, the great personalities. For us, the Mahajans, the great personalities, are the 6 Goswamis. And of course, Sarva Damodar, Rai Ramananda Roy. So we cry out to these personalities. Although we may not be able to see them, but they are there. And we must have faith. And if we cry out to them, then there will be also reciprocation. So all the great acharyas, they have given this path. Rupa Goswami has written one book. Now he has compiled one book, and there he has mentioned many verses of the acharyas, different great personalities. That book is known as Padyavali, beautiful book. And many times he has mentioned about the different acharyas who compiled or who had given different verses. But almost half of the time his writing author is unknown. But because the verses are beautiful, so he has mentioned them. For example, he's referring to Ramanujacharya, the great acharya, and the Sri Sampradaya, the Sampradaya from Sri Lakshmi Devi. And so he's calling out, so he quoted that in Padyavali. I offer my obeisances to the great saintly devotees of the Lord, headed by Prahlad, Narad, Parashar Muni, Pundarik, Vyasdev, Ambarish Maharaj, Shukadev, Shonak, Bhishma, Dhalbya, Rumangada, Udhav, Vibhishan and Arjun. So calling out to these great personalities to help one on the path. And there's one other famous poet, his name is Sarvagya. He also quoted a similar verse. And another verse which is mentioning there, that oh my dear Lord, and you great devotees, they consider the ocean to be a mere puddle, just like a small little puddle which is there after the rain. So it is very insignificant. That there is another verse also where it is mentioned that for the devotees, the ocean of this material existence becomes small, again also like a puddle, like the cows or the calf's hoof print, very easy to cross. So if we take shelter of the Lord and His devotees, then we can cross over this material existence. And the sun to be just like a firefly. So there's some small flies, and they live just for a little while. And some of them, they're giving some light, but there's hardly anything. So for the devotees who are taking shelter of Krishna and the devotees, then everything in this material world is very insignificant. And even Mount Meru is just a clump of earth, and Mount Meru is huge. And the powerful emperor is just like an insignificant servant. And a pile of Chintamani jewels is only just like a stone. And a kalpadruma tree, a wish-fulfilling tree, is just like an ordinary stick. And the entire world is just like a bunch of straw. So when the devotees are in difficulties, then this material world is practically empty, and then the only way they can survive is by crying out in separation to the Lord and to the other devotees. And then they can overcome this difficult situation. So the stress is given here on the association with the devotees. And it is mentioned also in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, quoted from Hari Bhakti Surodai, that so if one is associating with the devotees, then actually one is able to overcome these difficulties. And it is explained just like if one has a crystal, and the crystal is near to another object, then actually that will reflect, the crystal will reflect the nearby object. So similarly, if one is in the association of the great devotees, then one may be able to imbibe the qualities of that great devotee. So therefore it is recommended to associate with the advanced devotees, Swajatiya Bhaktas, who have the same mood as we are aspiring to. And in our sampradaya, so we are worshipping Mahaprabhu and we are worshipping Radha Krishna. And specifically, so we take shelter of Rupa Goswami, who is very dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And of course, as explained in the previous verse, Swarup Damodar. And in Radha Krishna's pastimes, we take shelter of Rupa Manjari, and the other Manjaris, Rati Manjari, Lalita and Vishaka. And so taking shelter of these personalities is very important. So as sadhakas, we take shelter of the spiritual master, Rupa Goswami. And we can cry out to them. And then we can cry out internally also to on the stage of internal cultivation, trying to enter Braj Bhakti, Ragmarg. Then when we take shelter of Rupa and Rati Manjari. And so if one is in purified consciousness, then it is actually easier to overcome these difficulties. But still, because the material energy is very strong, even the advanced devotees have to be careful. Just like if one is going to school, and the children, they go to school, so then the exams are there, and so, but it is always difficult. Because nowadays in the first and second class, they don't have, sometimes they don't even have exams. I heard they don't have exams anymore, is it so? I heard.
Till 8th in our school, it's compulsory to pass them. There are internal exams.
Internal exams, till the 8th.
But yes, till 8th standard now. But according to government guidelines, they will not fail the students.
Acha, they will not fail the students. Acha. So they will help.
Yes.
Acha, okay. Yeah. Not in Delhi, no. Well, in my time, the teacher is always there to help, but you had to pass the exams. And then they had a book, and you had the copy, and then you had to write down. And you could, and the teacher would not give the answer. You had to study, even first class and second. And it's always difficult for the student. in the third, fourth, whatever class the student is in. The exam is always difficult. But then if you are in a higher class and then you look at the exam of the second and third grade child, and I said nothing, this exam. But when they were small, it was also a big thing. But after is nothing. And for the university students, even the 10th class, 10th grade exams, yeah, it's nothing. I passed that also. But even when it's there, at that time it's difficult. Similarly, in devotional life, different tests are there. And the beginning devotee is struggling in a certain way. And then he can overcome the difficulties. But then even those who are more advanced, they're being tested. And then it is also difficult, even for the advanced devotees. And sometimes they fail also, the advanced devotees. And we have seen in practical life, so the difficulties are there, and sometimes one is failing, and sometimes, they cannot recover. Sometimes the children also, they drop out from the school. I can't do it anymore. You finished the 12th? Okay, you're in the 12th now? Okay. Then they go to open university in Delhi, right? Indira Gandhi Open University. Sometimes then it happens. And of course, even nowadays it is not easy in the school. So much pressure is there in the school. And so much unnecessary things are taught. Even things which are actually wrong are taught. Because it is not according to Shastra. And and for everyone is the same, but not everyone is the same. According to previous times, so then there was also, for example, the girls, they didn't have to go all the way to school, like 12 years. They do a little something, and usually, of course, was even at home for the girls, learning a little reading and writing, and little knowledge is given, but then had to learn how to cook, to learn how to do sewing, so they could do some practical work at home. And even for the man, usually, so different schools were there. For those who are Brahminically inclined, one school, then you will go to Gurukul, and those who are, the Kshatriyas were there, the kings and the children. And it was a different school. They learned. So some basic knowledge was there, the learning how to read and write. But then afterwards, so there was a division. The Brahmanas, children, they were in one school, and then the Kshatriya children were in a different school. There was some distinction, and then Vaishyas, they were doing business, so not much schooling. They learned something little, and then they take over the business or take care of the land, of the cows. And then those who are less intelligent, so they just have to work. So previously there was a little better system than nowadays. There was not so much pressure. But then those who have some natural inclination to study, and then they were encouraged, and then they could easily then also learn. So now it is different. But so basically the point is that the different tests are there throughout the life. So in the school, but in real life also. But one has to try to advance more and more. And one has to try to overcome the test. And for that one always has to be in the association of the devotees, those who are more advanced, those who are experienced, those who are wise. And in their association it will be easier, because they have studied, they have experienced, so then they can more easily guide the devotees. So that is important.
One question. Was there some kind of punishment for the kids in previous?
Previously, there was some punishment for
like
the kids.
Brahmana kids or Kshatriya kids, like Kshatriya separate school, Brahmana separate.
Yes. If there was some punishment.
Yeah, for this one.
Yeah, of course. If there's some, if the children were doing something wrong, there was some punishment also. Different kinds. It depends on of what they were doing wrong, but some punishment was there. Even there may be a little beating may be there previously, and so that was. But it was done very carefully, and the teachers, they were experienced, and the love was there. But then sometimes you have to give punishment, or the parents also, they have to sometimes punish the children if they're disobedient and if they are naughty. So some punishment that was given also previously. And of course nowadays one is not supposed to touch the children at all. Because many times there was also misuse of the power of the teacher, and so then they were harming the children also. So therefore, then the laws were made nowadays also that one cannot even touch the child, even for the parents nowadays. In many places in the West also, one cannot touch the child, otherwise they can go to the police, which doesn't make sense. But still it is there. When the child goes to the police, my father hit me, and then the police is coming. What is this? But because of the general people not being God conscious, then so all these difficulties are there, and then the laws are made by also other persons who are not God conscious, and then the situation becomes a little difficult. But some law and order always must be there. And for that purpose, so there must be punishment. Otherwise there will not be any law and order. Because it is a tendency, the conditioned soul or even the child, to be a little mischievous, to be naughty. And if there's no punishment, there's no law and order, then there will be havoc. Therefore in some places, I was just reading one article by one person explaining about in Afghanistan, if somebody is stealing something, they will cut the hand. And then so there was a Western person who was there in Afghanistan, and he was talking to the person living there, and to explain to him, and he was saying, this is cruel. A little thing and they cut the hand. And then if they do something more big, then, well, they cut the head, right? And, oh, this is cruel. And then he was thinking, what is this? And then the person from there, Afghanistan, he was saying, well, but in my country, you have been here in our country for some time. Do you see any person whose hand is cut off? Do you see anybody? Or anybody whose head is cut off? Then you cannot see because he's dead, right? He will take him away. But the person whose hand is cut off can still walk around, right? But do you see anybody? And he was thinking, no, actually I've been here quite some time. I don't see. I see all the people, they have the two hands and they are fine. So then the person from Afghanistan said, so you see, because of the strict law, nobody is daring to steal. And nobody is stealing. Because they know, if I steal, my hand is cut off. So why should I steal? No, I cannot steal. But if the law is not strong, and the order is not there, then okay, I just steal, and anyway, the police will not do anything, or they catch me, but you know, I can make up some story and then I'm free again. I can steal again. So, sometimes, then even the murderer is there, and then put him for trial, and then he was just making some story or saying I was not well or something, and sometimes he gets only small punishment, and then he becomes free again and he kills somebody else. And so sometimes, some punishment must be there. And then if the punishment is there, then there will be law and order. So therefore, even sometimes for the children, even previously, sometimes some punishment was there. And then the other children see, if somebody is getting beaten on the back or somewhere, then they will know, I don't want this to happen to me. Then they become afraid, and then, but if now you cannot touch the children, and they do whatever they want, the children. And so therefore the difficulties will be there. So, but we have to see time, place and circumstances. So it is not easy in this material world. But here some punishment was there. So even sometimes some beating was there. But then the love was there also. And then when everyone was then controlled or obedient, then it is easier to teach. But if there's no law and order, then it's difficult to teach. And then the students are answering back to the teacher, and sometimes it becomes difficult. So, if one is acting according to the scriptures, according to the spiritual master, with Krishna, with God in the center, then it becomes easier. And it is then easier to advance in spiritual life and to be also happy in this material world. So therefore one has to look for the association of the devotees who are nicely situated, then it becomes easier. The difficulties are always there, even in the association of the devotees, of the advanced devotees. Still, difficulties will be there, that is, in the material world. Difficulties are always there. And even when the pure devotee is here, so sometimes the disciples are there and they're also troubled by these difficulties as mentioned here, lust, anger, greed. But then they have to try to take shelter of the spiritual master, the acharyas. But even then sometimes they have difficulty. So one has to pray in order to be able to overcome the difficulty. And so therefore then, but if one is taking shelter of the spiritual master, there's more chances of being able to overcome the difficulty. Because the spiritual master is expert, and if the disciple has difficulty, he will try to help in different ways so that the disciple can overcome the difficulty, whatever it may be. So therefore, one should always try to be in the association of the advanced devotees. Therefore, it is mentioned throughout the scriptures that sadhu sangha is very important. And so the first limb of devotional service is Guru Pada Ashray, taking shelter of the spiritual master. And then in the 5 most important limbs which are mentioned in the 64 limbs of devotional service, again sadhu sangha is mentioned. So sadhu sangha is very important. But then ultimately, so most important is that one is taking shelter of the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So Krishna Nam, Nam Prabhu is very merciful. So if we take shelter of the holy names, then we can overcome the difficulties. So the different limbs are explained about devotional service, and actually we have to try to take a shelter of all these different limbs. Because sometimes even one is chanting the holy names, but still the mind is disturbed. Then one takes association with the sadhus. One may get some relief, but sometimes even that is not enough. Then one is taking shelter of the deities, or then one should take shelter of the Bhagavatam, hearing about Krishna, hearing about Mahaprabhu. Sometimes the mind is giving difficulty, sometimes the senses. So one has to try to use one's intelligence also, so that one can overcome all the difficulties. And one has to one has to cry out for the mercy of Hari Guru Vaishnav. But one has to sincerely endeavor, and then one will get some mercy. So it is not so easy, but one has to try sincerely, and despite all difficulties, if one is sincere, then one can make some advancement in spiritual life. And if one is fortunate, then one can attain perfection also. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Any more questions? Yeah, one question.
So we see that many times devotees experience some unique experience in their life, and after that they become consistent in their Krishna conscious activities. Like they become serious.
Yes.
Right after that incident,
okay.
Maybe some realization or some Krishna conscious incident where they just had a talk with Krishna or something. So and then they just come to Nishtha level.
Yes.
After that incident. So generally speaking, it happens like this, or it happens with time. Like when me personally speak, I'll trying so hard to be consistent but failing every time, and sometimes I just feel helpless. Like trying to get up early in the morning, I get up for like 7 days, then 4 days again late. So it's like that. Then trying more hard, and similarly with reading. So when will I become fixed? Am I waiting for some incident to happen, or?
Yeah. So sometimes some devotees, they have some unique realization, or by which they can then become very steady. So then the question is, is that always the case, or sometimes one just has to wait for the time when one becomes fixed? And so the process of purification is there for everyone. But different individuals are there with different background, different karma, purva samskar, previous impressions, and then the different tests are there, and the Lord will help in different ways. So it is from individual to individual, and so we cannot really say that it is the same for everyone. But basically, one thing is pretty similar, that is the different stages. First one has faith, And then when one has faith in the Lord, then one comes in the association of the sadhus, the spiritual master. And in the association of the spiritual master, then one can engage in devotional activities. And then the anathas are there, and then they will be slowly but surely removed. So everyone is going through the stages. And then Nishta will come. But it may be, so basically the stages are there, but then the path is not always the same for all. And so the different tests are there for the different individuals, and in different ways the Lord will help. So this is not the same for everyone. So that, and we don't have to actually worry about others, or so we have to worry about ourselves, or we should not just think, oh, this devotee is fortunate and now he's so fixed, and then so maybe he has heard about somebody, he had some experience, and after that he became fixed. So, but it is ultimately also between Krishna and the devotee. And so, of course, then the agents are there of Krishna also, by which the devotees are helped. Or so it is a individual process, and basically we have to follow our path, and we have to try to go through the different stages, but we follow the basic injunctions which are there, given by the spiritual master, by the scriptures, and then our advancement is guaranteed. Some devotees may be able to advance more quickly, and that is usually due to purva samskar, due to previous impressions. Some may not advance so quickly because they are just starting. And even sometimes you may see some devotees, they're advancing nicely, but then suddenly they have some difficulty. And you may think, oh, the grihastas, so one may think that it's more difficult, which generally it is true, but still, if one is sincere, there's no external hindrance in one's advancing in spiritual life. Because Krishna is most intelligent, and he's merciful to everyone, even to the grihastas, even to women, who are usually considered not to be able to make such a rapid advancement due to the psychophysical nature. But ultimately then there is no barrier for anyone if one is sincerely surrendered. Sometimes you see somebody has been brahmachari 10, 20 years, but then suddenly, even 30 years, and then suddenly getting married. And somebody else got married, he was early, and then the others are laughing, ha ha ha. He's a grihasta, I am a brahmachari. I will never go back home to Godhead in this lifetime. But then you see then the brahmachari, and then suddenly he's getting married. Even sometimes sannyasis we have seen. Then they give up the danda, they give up the sannyas dress and getting married. Or even if they're not getting married but still having difficulties also, even in the later stages. Or even throughout. Sometimes the brahmacharis are there. Why they're brahmacharis? Because they know to get married is not easy. And to maintain a family is not easy. Then they're not getting somehow it is not in their chart to get married, and they have to remain brahmachari, but they want to get married, but they cannot. And they are even lamenting, I cannot get married, I wish I can get married. These are not the real brahmacharis. The real brahmacharis never thinking about that, but they are rare. Many are just by default brahmacharis because they cannot get married, so they have to be brahmacharis. So-called. But still, there are many wonderful brahmacharis and sannyasis who are doing nicely. But then there are many wonderful grihastas were fully engaged in devotional service, and the wife also, and then the children also, and even pure devotees, householders also. And you can see even Mahaprabhu's time, Krishna's time, many pure devotees, householders. Like the Pandavas, the householders. Ambarish Maharaj, he was the emperor. He had 20 wives. So because at that time, and because generally there are more women than men, so therefore according to Shastra, the man can marry also more than once, especially if they can maintain. And the king, he can maintain, and he was emperor. But he was fully engaged in devotional service. He was doing himself Thakurji Seva, worshipping the Lord. So exalted Paramahamsa, Mahabhagavat, pure devotee of the Lord. So sometimes you may see that somebody is doing well, but then he has difficulty. And then somebody is struggling, but then later on then he does well, and then he may attain perfection. So like even Bilva Mangal Thakur, so he was a Brahmana, but somehow he became attached to a prostitute. She was also devoted to the Lord, but still, due to circumstances, she was in that position. And then he even left his wife, Bilva Mangal Thakur. But then also he came to his senses. Also the prostitute told him, "Why are you coming to me? You're so eager to come to me even in great difficulties. You should go to the Supreme Lord with this eagerness." And he went towards Vrindavan. So he was on the platform of spontaneous attachment, but still. So he was doing Raganuga Bhakti with spontaneous sentiments. He was trying to approach Krishna, but still, due to Purva Samskar, previous impressions, and due to sometimes somebody is doing something wrong and the reaction is not coming immediately. Sometimes even it will come in the next life. So then he was having some difficulty. But because at the same time, so he was engaged in devotional activities, so he was still steady, but the difficulties were there in his life. But ultimately he was also getting the Lord's mercy. So because he was seeing that his eyes were just attracted to the opposite sex, so he considered his eyes to be a hindrance and useless. So he plucked out his eyes, and then he was blind, and he was going towards Vrindavan. And then Krishna came, seeing that, well, this devotee is struggling, but he's very sincere, and he plucked out his eyes from me. And so then he took him by the hand, and as he was approaching Vrindavan, Krishna went to receive him and took him by the hand. So he got the mercy of the Lord. So from ordinary point of view, so he was then not accepted. So even somebody may criticize Ambarish Maharaj, what kind of king he was. He had 20 wives. But he was a pure devotee, and he was taking care of the wives. And at that time it was of course allowed, and it was not seen as something wrong. But the ordinary person nowadays may think, what is this? The king had 20 wives. This is nonsense. So therefore we should stick to the principles of devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master and the scriptures, and then be always positive, and even if it is a little difficult, but we should never lose hope. And even though it is very difficult and one is struggling, but That is just life. But hope against hope, we have to continue. Ashabandha, keeping the asha, the hope, that ultimately I will get perfection. We must have that hope. That should be there. Yes, I'm on the path. And Guru and Gauranga and Krishna, they will help me. Although I'm struggling now, but surely I will attain perfection. If not now, in 10 years, if not in 10 years, in 20 years, or maybe after 30 years, or maybe next lifetime. But we are on the path, and we are fortunate. And we should appreciate our good fortune, even though we may be struggling. But we are struggling in the right direction, going towards Golok. Other people, everyone is struggling. Everyone in the material world. And some persons, they may have some good situation, materially speaking, but still there's always a struggle is there in the world. Even the pure devotees have to struggle. Prabhupada, when he went out here to go to America, it was not easy. So he was printing, he was, after taking sannyas, then he was trying to write and then print books. He went to Delhi and he was distributing books, Back to God and magazines. But hardly anybody was helping and buying the books, and he was struggling. Going sometimes whole day out in Delhi, trying to sell some BTGs. In the beginning he was not successful. And he was 70 years old now. How old he was? He was at that time after sannyas. And he was 63. He was 63. And 59 he took sannyas. He was 63. And then he was, he stayed in Matra, and then he stayed also in Radha Damodar temple. He went to Delhi. 65 he was, and then trying to preach, and it was difficult. He made some disciples, but he was not able to do much here in India first. But he was trying very hard. So struggle was there. Then he went to America. 2 heart attacks were there on the way. And then there he was in New York. First in Buffalo and then in America. And then he went to New York and started to chant the holy names, and he got some help, but then difficulties were there. One time he got one typewriter and then tried typing trying to work on his books. And one time somebody came and stole all his things, tape recorder or whatever. So much struggle was there. But he simply continued, and he knew that success will be there because it is my Guru Maharaj's desire. So also the devotee, they must have the faith that, yes, I'm on this path, and my spiritual master, Mahaprabhu, is there to help. So help will be there. But the struggle is always there. One time Prabhupada, he flew from one place, I think actually from India, and then he went to, and he had one assistant with him, one servant, and he flew to London. And then they arrived at the airport, and all the devotees there chanting and dancing, receiving Prabhupada. And so they had to go through the customs, and they cleared them, but then they had to get the luggage. So usually you have to wait a little bit, the belt is there, and sometimes it takes time. So then the servant had to stay to get the luggage, and Prabhupada went with the devotees there, the car, and of course one devotee was there to wait also and help him. And then Prabhupada went back, and in the temple they had made a feast. And Prabhupada, to darshan of the deities, went to his room, and he had prasad, the devotees had prasad. And maybe everything was over, and then the other devotee came with the luggage. And the other, wow, such a nice feast we had today, Prabhupada is back. And he was there carrying the heavy bags. And he was down. I missed the prasad. Prabhupada spoke, I missed it also. And then he had to go up the stairs. So it's a small place in London, Soho Street. I was there also. And going up the stairs to Prabhupada's room, he entered the room and Prabhupada was there relaxing. And he saw that devotee was feeling dejected and depressed. And Prabhupada said that in the material world there is always a struggle. But don't worry, very soon you will be liberated and you will go to the spiritual world and there's no struggle, no anxiety, Vaikuntha. And then he was happy because Prabhupada spoke nicely like this to him. He was encouraged. And there was some leftover prasad also he got. And he was okay. So difficulties are there, but then the spiritual master, Mahaprabhu, is there to help. And then, so we simply have to have the faith and we have to persevere with enthusiasm. And we should know that success is guaranteed. We only have to be patient. So you don't have to worry. You're very fortunate. You're in Vrindavan. And devotees now in America and Europe, what to do? They are crying. They cannot come to Vrindavan because of this situation. And who knows when they will be able to come. But you are in Vrindavan. Maybe you're struggling, but still you are in Vrindavan. Very fortunate. You're chanting Hare Krishna every day, right? And you're serving the deities also. You're so fortunate. You're getting prasad every day. She's cooking nicely. Yeah, so you're getting nice prasad. So what's the problem? No problem. But the mind is there. That is the problem. That's why we're discussing Manah Siksha. Because actually there's no problem. There's only the mind. But we have to be positive. And if you're positive, one of Prabhupada's godbrother was saying, everything is positive. In order to see that everything is positive, we have to be positive. And not lament this problem, this devotee, that devotee is troubling me, the weather is not good, it's too cold, it's too hot. No, we should never complain, but we should be positive. Okay, it's too cold anyway, it's good, so I can eat a little more. Of course, it's still a little difficult, but at least it's not too hot. And in the summer, when it's too hot, then it's safe. At least now I can reduce my eating. I'm forced to reduce my eating. It's wonderful. I don't have to put on so many clothes. I'm not catching cold in the summer. It's wonderful. It's a little bit hot, but it's good. At least it's not too cold. So one who's positive is positive in the winter, is positive in the summer. One is complaining in the winter, is complaining in the summer. So better be positive. And say even sometimes they complain, or the president is too heavy. And the new president is coming, is very lenient, or the president is too lenient. They're complaining, and they will not benefit. And the other devotee is saying, oh, the president is heavy, good, so I'm forced to be humble and tolerant, and so I'm staying in line. And if the president is lenient, oh, it's good, the president is lenient, so I have a chance to develop and be responsible myself. And I can help him then, and become mature. So the one who's positive is seeing that everything is positive. The one who is not positive is seeing nothing is positive, and is always complaining. So you have to be positive and see that everything is fine. And the struggles are there, problems are there, but so that will also help you to become mature. So struggle is there, and just like a child is there, so a child is trying to walk, and then is getting up, and then the parents are there helping, taking by the hand, but then after some time they will also tell the child, okay, now, okay, and they leave the hand and he has to go on his own. He takes a few steps, oops, he falls down. And then again he comes up and then he walks, and then suddenly he can walk. So like this also. So if there's a struggle is there, you get up in the morning and then after sometimes you cannot. Okay, after that, then you try again to get up early, a few days, and then again you sleep nicely till 7 o'clock. Then you try again. And then after some time you will be able to be more regular. Same with the reading, so with everything. So you just have to continue, after some time you will be okay. And yeah, so. Okay? All right, so any question otherwise there? Any question? Okay, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Kirtana Gana Natana Pano